Hello, hello, hello there. It's your girl Valerie Mason Chase again, and we are back. We are back. We are back. This is our first episode for the 2024-2025 season. We took some time off for the summer, and actually, I had planned to be back a couple of weeks ago, but sometimes, what is that thing the young folks say? Life be lifing. So life was lifing, but we are here, and we have a great, great episode planned for you this evening. And we're gonna get to it in a minute. Before we do, I just want to say a little something, something. Okay. And let me just say this in the beginning because I always forget to subscribe, to like, to share, whether you are on YouTube, you're on Facebook. So I appreciate that support and any support that you or others can give. I don't usually talk about anything political at all on Marriage Beyond the Breach, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere. But you may notice I have on a t-shirt tonight, and it says "Vote like your ancestors died for it." Okay, and that's meaningful to me because so many of our ancestors did die for our right to vote. And from my perspective, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green Party, or you just want to write somebody's name in. But vote. When my children were younger, and I was teaching them about our histories, I made sure that I did that, teach them a lot of stuff that they would never learn in school. And one of the things I said to them is, from my perspective, for me, voting is a way for me to honor my ancestors because so many of them sacrificed so much, many with their very lives. And here's the thing, a lot of them did not get to live long enough to benefit from and to experience some of the very freedoms that they were fighting for. So they were not only doing it for themselves. I don't think that they were primarily doing it for themselves, but they were doing it for me and my generation and for my children and for my grandchildren. So I just want to say, get out and vote. If you haven't done so already, I encourage you, register, get out there, tell mom and them, tell your cousin them, tell your friends and them, tell your colleagues, tell everyone. We need to exercise that privilege. And that's exactly what it is. It is a privilege. And I tell people that I have conversations with, if you don't vote, you don't have a voice. I don't even like entertaining conversations with people from a political perspective if they don't vote. But anywho, that's that. That's all I'm going to say about that. But tonight, we have an amazing guest on. One of my faves. I know she's one of your faves too. Hey, sis. And tonight we're going to be talking about conflict management in relationships. And I say management as opposed to conflict resolution. And we're going to talk some more about that in a minute. But first, let me bring on Dr. Angel Wyndham. Hey, Dr. Angel.
Hello, hello, Valerie. It's nice to see you.
It is good to see you too. And I thank you for being here with us tonight. I thank you for being our very first guest of the season. So you
Yay! It's
girl.
an honor.
So
It's an honor.
you're gonna set the bar real high. So everybody
Yes.
who follows you, they're gonna have a tough act to follow, right?
Okay, great.
So for those who are unfamiliar with you, share with the viewers anything that you want them to know about yourself.
Well, I'm Dr. Angel Wyndham. I have my doctorate in social work, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, certified clinical supervisor. I actually met Valerie through Mending Hearts Behavioral Health and Family Services.
Mhm.
I am the clinical supervisor there, and Valerie is one of our phenomenal, clinicians. I also have my own private practice, New Creation Counseling
Mhm.
Services. And so I'm just honored to be here. I started my career in social work or in mental health, primarily working with children, adolescents, young adults. But I have
Mm.
expanded and grown to work with families, to work with couples. And I'm working with women, and I'm just enjoying the journey that God has me on.
Yes, and there is Dr. Angel's private practice, New Creation. Oh, I
Counseling
didn't
services.
capitalize the state, but Yeah, but forgive us, sister. New Creation Counseling Services is Dr. Angel's private practice in addition to serving at Mending Hearts Behavioral Health and Family Services. And Dr. Angel wears a lot of hats. Uh, she does this. She sells them jewelries. She's a wife. She's a mom. She's a whole lot of things. But tonight she is our very very special guest. So we're gonna get started. Hey, Dr. Danita, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. So for anyone who's watching, again, if you haven't already done so, I would appreciate if you would subscribe and share and like and all that good stuff. And I also like for our broadcast to be interactive. So if you have questions, if you have
Mhm.
comments, if you have experienced any of the things that we're talking about, please don't hesitate to chime in the comments. Put it in the comments. So tonight, Dr. Angel, we're talking about conflict management in
Yes.
relationships. So from your perspective, what are some of the most common causes of conflict in relationships, and how can couples identify these early on?
So, couples, I've done a lot of the premarital counseling with couples, and couples often have certain expectations around who's doing the
Mm,
cooking, who's doing the cleaning, what time you going to be home from work, what time are you going
mm,
out to the gym, or what time are you going to be doing your club or whatever it is that you do. You know, it's different expectations that couples have, and they need to have that conversation prior
mm,
to, living together, getting married. Who's doing the,
mhm,
the
mhm,
laundry? Are you doing your own laundry, or now you expecting, your spouse to do your laundry or whatever have
mhm,
you? Those different expectations mean a lot. A big thing is finances, but we can get to that
mm.
later. But that
Yeah.
definitely is something that can make or break a relationship when, people are expecting certain financial um responsibilities to be handled
Mm,
by their spouse,
mhm,
and
mhm.
it doesn't get handled.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very important. That word, that E word, expectations. I remember Pastor Daniels said on several occasions in sermons that a lot of frustration in relationships is a result of unmet expectations. But
Mhm.
sometimes, like you said, our partner doesn't even know what it is that we're expecting because
Mhm.
what our expectations are because we haven't had that conversation. So
Exactly.
we don't know what they expect. They don't know what we expect. So I think that's really key. What you said, and you said premarital counseling, and that is
Mhm.
definitely a place where you can talk about some of those expectations. Yes, Dr. Danita says selfishness causes conflict. I versus we.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Couples seeing themselves as real partners, as a team, and
As a
working
unit,
together. I think
yes.
it's very
Mhm.
important, Dr. That. Yeah, that's very important, Dr. Danita. So, Dr. Angel, when it comes to conflict, how does the way we handle conflict as individuals, how might that stem from our childhood experiences, our family of
Mhm.
origin?
So I know, when we talk about the psychology of things, nature versus nurture, right? How we're raised,
Mm-hmm.
really does affect,
Mm-hmm.
and also the models that we see growing up really does affect
Mm-hmm.
how we manage conflict
Mm-hmm.
later on. How did my mom manage conflict? How did my dad manage
Mm-hmm.
conflict? How did grandma or grandpa or my uncle or auntie, how
Yeah.
did they all manage conflict? Did everybody just go in the room and always act like everything was okay? Or did we
Mm.
hear the yelling fits right
Mm-hmm.
in front of us? We have to have some type of balance and show that yes, it's okay to have an argument. These things do happen. You know,
Yes.
everything is not going to always be everybody's in agreement, you know. There's going to be
Mm-hmm.
disagreements, right? So but definitely managing conflict is it does stem from our childhood past experience. Some people have had traumatic experiences that affect how they manage conflict. They may shut down,
Mm-hmm.
or they may,
Mm-hmm.
the conflict may blow up, You never know.
Mm,
But it's important to
yeah.
be aware of, oh, I'm managing
Mm,
this way because this is what I saw, this is what I witnessed, this is what I know how to, this is what's normal for me, because
mm,
this is what happened where I was raised.
yeah. Yeah. And what about um, past relationships and the way conflict was handled in those relationships
Mhm.
having an impact on a new or current relationship?
People bring baggage into relationships all the time. People bring
Mm.
baggage. That's why they always say, don't necessarily be, getting into a relationship with somebody on the rebound because that
Woo-hoo.
person may not have healed, from their past relationship. So
Yeah.
you already know that this may not be the best, you know, relationship to enter in if they haven't gotten that other person out of their system, you know
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
not fair to you, that's not fair to them, but people do it all day, every day, right?
I know. And that, I think that is so unfortunate because I understand why people do it because they're hurting and they're
Mhm.
looking for something to soothe that hurt, even though it might be momentary. But I think that's one of the worst things that someone can do is to get out of one relationship and immediately get into another until real healing has taken place. I think it's really sabotaging. You're going to
Yes.
sabotage the relationship when you're on the rebound. I don't think they typically work those rebound relationships.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, Dr. Angel, when it comes to conflict, um, there is constructive conflict and there's destructive conflict.
Mhm.
So, what's the difference and how can partners tell?
So when there's a conflict, disagreement, whatever have you speaking with your partner, is this conversation going to edify? Is this conversation going to build up your partner? Or
Mm,
is this conversation going to break them down? Is it going to
mm-hmm,
destroy their confidence in their relationship skills or whatever have you? So you have
mm,
to tread
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
lightly and whenever you are discussing things with your partner, you want to discuss those things in love. You want to come from a place of love. You don't want to come from a place of I'm angry, I'm mad, I'm fed up with this, I'm frustrated, I'm disappointed. So
mm,
those emotions, coming with those charged emotions into the conflict, into the conversation, it's gonna end
mm-hmm.
up being destructive. You know, taking that
Yeah.
time to maybe make some bullet points. I know it may sound crazy, but taking that time to make some bullet points and say, okay, what is my purpose of having this conversation with my partner? How can I
Mm,
highlight some good things about them before I go into, you know, before I go into highlighting the negative. I love what my husband
yeah.
put here, verbal encouragement versus verbal abuse. That's
Verbal
so
abuse.
true.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. And I love that idea about writing down bullet points. And it may seem not, it may seem, it will probably be uncomfortable the first couple of times that you do it. But I have actually encouraged some of the couples that I counsel to do just that because it helps you to stay on track,
Mhm.
you to not go off on a tangent and to stay with the subject or the topic at hand. And you said in your response, don't leave love out of the equation.
Yes.
Don't leave love out of the equation. Even a contentious conversation, a difficult conversation, even conflict, when you're in the midst of it, remember this is still your person. That
Mhm.
ain't changed. You still love him. They still love you. That ain't changed just because you're in the midst of a conflict. And sometimes I think we get so angry and so entrenched in our individual positions that we just throw love out the window. And that's when all that crazy talk starts and
Mhm.
words come out. cannot take back, and feelings get hurt. Yeah, and your husband said helps to not get emotionally hijacked. Absolutely.
Thank you,
Oh no,
Dr.
that's Dr.
Danita.
Danita. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
That's Dr. Danita. Said helps to not get emotionally hijacked. You don't want to get emotionally hijacked because then once you become flooded, everything escalates and
Exactly.
there's no understanding or resolution or compromise at that point. That's one of the things I love about. I'm sorry, I got this Charlie horse. Is it called a Charlie horse in your throat? What is it called?
I don't
Whatever it's
know.
called. No, Charlie horse is when you have a cramp. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Hold on, let me just drink something real
We'll
quick.
let you
I'm
take a
sorry.
sip of water.
Hmm.
Let me I want to
What?
say something about what Dr. Danita said about being emotionally hijacked. Any
Yeah.
decision that we make,
Hmm.
I always tell clients, any decision we make sure that you're making that decision out of a place of logic. So that's why I talked about writing the bullet points. Instead of making it because
Mm.
you are so happy about something, you're so excited about something. We can still make wrong decisions when we're happy and excited. People often don't talk
Mm.
about it. And then when you're
Hmm.
so angry, so mad, so frustrated, don't make that choice, don't make that decision. Wait till you
Yeah.
have, said, okay, let me calm down, whether I'm happy, whether I'm angry, whether I'm excited, whatever those emotions are, have them, but then come from a place of logic when you're making your decision.
Yeah. And even though it may be challenging to do in the midst of a conflict, it's important to do that. Thanks, Dr. Danita. She said it's a frog in my throat. That's what it is. What I call it, a
See, she
Charlie
figured
horse.
it out.
I am so sorry. So, and the whole issue of conflict. This is one of the things I love about the Gottmans. I am a huge fan of John and Julie Gottman and the research that they do with couples because um, they have they have said a lot about how a couple manages conflict
Mhm.
can kind of predict the future of their relationship, even if they're going to have one, and how connected they can remain in the midst of conflict.
Mhm.
Um, and that's why I think I like the idea of managing conflict because one of the things that the documents say is that many problems that couples face are unsolvable, where you can't resolve it and just put it in a box and tie it up with a bow. And it's important to learn the art of compromise and have that
Exactly.
willingness to give a little to get a little.
Mhm.
And it's not about winning and losing because to me, if one person wins, everybody loses when you're talking about a relationship. So you were talking earlier, we were speaking about keeping love as part of the equation in the midst of conflict. So how can a couple try to ensure that any conflict they may have does not damage their sense of trust and emotional safety? Because I think that
Mhm.
emotional safety piece is so important. So how can they help to
Yes.
maintain that even in a
Yes.
conflict?
I mean, I want to say that we do, in order to manage conflict, like you said, we want to come up with a way that it's a win-win. Everybody's gonna win.
Mm,
You don't want this
mm,
person won or this person was right and this person was wrong.
mm,
It needs
mhm,
to be a win-win. Yes, we need to compromise. Um, when we talk about showing yourself trust, when we talk about not damaging the sense of trust and emotional safety, we need to make sure that we're showing ourselves trustworthy, that we're showing ourselves that
mm,
I can handle being safe with your emotions. It is a privilege
mhm,
to be able to be with that person, that they chose
mhm,
you and that you chose them. And so when you ask them to do something, you need to be also doing that. And the example that comes to mind, a lot of people like to share their location. You know, I want you to
mm,
share your location with me. Are you sharing your
mhm.
location with me? You know, we both need to be sharing locations then. You know, oh, I need you to
Yeah.
let me know where you're going to be at such and such time on this day. I want to go out or something. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Are you letting the person know ahead of time, or are you just expecting on Saturday at 6 because you got
Mm.
babysitter for the kids that now, your wife is available when you didn't even say anything. We got this event and you not ready or
Mhm.
whatever. So giving the person the opportunity to, show up, and
Yeah.
giving yourself that opportunity
Mhm.
too is a way to ensure that you don't damage the sense of trust and the sense of
Mhm.
emotional safety, letting them know in your actions, not just in the things you
Mhm.
say, but letting them know in your
Mhm.
actions. If they come in the room and you're on the phone and then you automatically close up the phone screen, that's not showing them
Mm.
that you're trustworthy. You know,
Mhm.
what
Mhm.
was on the
Mhm.
phone screen, but they come in the room and you actually say, "Hey, babe, look at this, what I'm watching," or
Mm.
you those are the things. Or letting them
Yeah.
know who your friends are. Everybody, you should know everybody. Your partner should know all your friends, and your friends and everybody should be all able to know each other. Exactly, Valerie. Everybody shouldn't be, "Oh, this is my secret friend over here. Oh, this is my friend that." Okay, well,
Mhm.
who is that? You know, that's not giving the person,
Yeah.
I'm going to hang out. Well, who you going to hang out with? Just
Mm.
coming clean with
Mhm.
the information and all of that, and where you're going to be and all of that. So showing yourself as
Yeah.
trustworthy is going to help
Yeah.
the partner feel that they can trust you.
Mhm. Mhm. I like what you said about each each partner knowing each other's friends, and I think it's important that uh, we not use that term friend so loosely, because maybe it's just an acquaintance, maybe it's somebody you work with, and it's not really a friend in the true sense of the word. Because listen, Frank and I have been together now. We met in 1980, so 44 years we've been
Wow.
together, right? If I don't know all his friends by now, I ain't gonna never know him. So if he now starts talking about Shaquanda, his friend Shaquanda, who that is? Okay, where's she from? I ain't never heard you talk about Shaquanda in 44 years. So where is she coming from? So yeah, I get that, and I absolutely do agree that there should be a sharing of each other's lives and be a part of each other's lives. And when that occurs, you do know your partner's friends, and your partner knows your friends. And I don't think that that emotional safety piece can be overstated.
Mhm.
It is so, so, so important. So many times we like to say, well, when men don't talk and they don't emote and they don't really speak about their emotions. But I think sometimes
Mhm.
it's not that they don't, it's that they don't feel safe enough to. So I think it's important to create a space that is safe, where they can share their emotions, where they can speak freely, and you're not going to look down on them for being quote unquote emotional, because they do have emotions just like us. But
Mhm.
can they trust their partner with them? I think that is key. Hey, Miss D, thank you for watching. I appreciate you. So yeah, an emotional safety I think is very, very important when you are engaging in conflict with your partner. Both partners need to feel emotionally safe so that they don't um, withdraw, go into hiding, and
Mhm.
withhold information. And speaking of withholding, when there is a power imbalance
Mhm.
in during a conflict, where you have one partner who may try to dominate and the other one shuts down,
Mhm.
how do you suggest a couple navigate that?
I suggest the couple navigates with active listening. So when I say active
Mm,
listening, that means the person is listening to the other person, not
mm,
not, over talking over the person, not waiting to say the stuff that's on their mind, but
yeah.
actually, hearing the person out and then repeating to that person. So I hear you're
Mm-hmm.
saying this. I often tell couples, get a pen. You having a disagreement, get a pen. The person who has the pen, we will say this is your talking stick. You are the person
Mm,
that gets to talk when you have the pen. Now,
right.
when you're done talking, then you pass the pen to the other person. It is their turn to talk. You zip it, you
Mm-hmm.
let them talk, right? So we have to take turns so that everyone is heard, you know,
Yes.
and so that way no one will shut down. Some people shut down, some people, are really emotionally charged and the other
Mm-hmm.
person dominates.
Mm-hmm.
No, it you have to everybody has to take turns. And I often say if
Yeah.
you have to have a timer or your phone, put the timer on your phone, you get your two
Yeah.
minutes. Go.
Mm-hmm.
Take the pen. Think
Mm-hmm.
about like, when the presidential candidates are at the debate, you get your time. You get the pen, you get your time on the
Right.
floor, you get your time to speak. Okay, now it's this person's time. The timer went off. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
their turn,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
everybody
Mm-hmm.
should have equal say. Because they'll say, well, he doesn't want to hear what I have to say anyway, or she doesn't want to hear what I have to say anyway, because she's always over,
Mm-hmm.
talking over me, or he's talking over me. And it isn't true. The person does really love the other, you really do love your partner. You really do want to
Mm-hmm.
hear what they have to say. Otherwise, you wouldn't have brought up the conflict to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
those
Mm-hmm.
emotions are so high that you have to
Yeah.
just say, okay, we may need some assistance while we having this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
We may need some
Mm-hmm.
assistance. Let's get a pen. You talk and then I talk. Let's get a timer
Mm-hmm.
or let's use our
Mm-hmm.
phone. Put the timer on the phone. It's your turn to talk, and then I'll take my turn. And so
Yeah.
everything is fair, you know?
Yeah. I absolutely 100% agree with that, because if not, in some situations there'll be one person who dominates the conversation. And I do all my counseling virtually.
Mhm.
So, and there are times when I will let it go on, because especially if it's the first or second session with them, because I want to see
Yes.
in real time what that power dynamic looks like.
Mhm.
And it's easy to see who is the one who may typically dominate the conversation, because it shows up when they are in session. Um, Wonderful Dr. Danita advised me to get this stop sign.
I love it. I love it.
I have used the stop sign, because especially when they're going back and forth and on top of each other, and I'll say to them, okay, when you see this, you got to stop. You got to stop. And I say to
Mhm.
them sometimes, listen, it's like baseball. You got three strikes. The third time I have to put that stop sign up, click, I'm done. The session's over. Okay. Because we can't get anywhere if
Mm.
because you guys can argue with me not in front of you. But the goal is to, just as you said, talk one at a time, make sure you heard what your partner said, and then and only then you respond. Because otherwise, the person who typically kind of shrinks back, that's exactly what they will do. And the other one will just go on and on and on and on. And I have had some couples outside of session even send me a text saying that they have concerns about something like that happening, and I have to assure them, no, if this is our first or second session, there's certain things that I want to see for myself, because a spouse can say to me, well, he or she dominates the conversation, but if I see it in real time, then I can make that assessment myself rather than just
Mhm.
hearing it from one partner or the other.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and I really like that idea about holding the pen and using a timer, so that there's some semblance of balance. We know it's not going to be all 50
No.
50. We're not even looking for that, but we are looking for there to be some semblance of balance in how each person gets to share their perspective and their point of view. So let's say that a couple has had a really significant conflict, a
Mhm.
huge blowout. So, how can you suggest for a couple to rebuild their closeness and their emotional connection after something like that has occurred?
Yes. So a huge blowout, a significant conflict. These things can occur. There's hurt feelings. There's,
Mm,
anger. There's a lot of emotions that are, that surface from it. You know, so
mhm,
being able to say, okay, it needs to be some time that we spend where we are looking for where was my part in this, and
mm,
what do I need to ask for forgiveness for in this whole
mhm,
situation? You know, I've had a couple that had told me that both of them said some words that were not nice to each other, you know, and so
mhm,
they both had
mhm,
to say, "This is what I did. This is what I did." So kind of taking
mm,
responsibility, owning up to what your part was in that situation, and then from there, seeking to forgive the other one, seeking to have the other one forgive you, and giving
mhm,
people their time and saying, what does this look like? Nobody has to leave the house or, necessarily or anything like that.
mhm,
But what does it look
mhm,
like
mhm,
me giving
mhm,
you some space and time to heal from, all that happened? And what are
mm,
we going to do the next time so that it doesn't get to this point? Looking at how did we even get here in the first place,
mhm,
that it became such a significant conflict is an important part of
mhm.
the process as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that part about having them think about how did we get here? Um, and sometimes what I will ask couples is, okay, what do you think you may have done differently to avoid this big argument? Not what your partner could have done, because that's the first thing they usually want to say. Well, if
Yes.
he hadn't done this or if she hadn't done that, no. What could you have done
Mhm.
differently, possibly to avoid it ending up in this huge, big uh, a blowout because both partners have participated in it. There's something you just said. You said in the midst of a big argument or a huge blowout that nobody has to leave the house. But I'm wondering if there are times when leaving the house momentarily might be called for or appropriate.
Well,
What are your thoughts?
I say that because sometimes people feel if they leave the house, they're leaving the relationship. I will say this, that,
Mm,
when my husband and I had premarital counseling, it was discussed that not to leave the house, but if you and your
mm,
partner
mhm,
have an agreement that you're gonna go out to the
mm,
car or you're gonna take a walk
yeah,
around the neighborhood, it needs to be,
mhm.
"Okay, and I'll be back in 20 minutes." Not, "Okay, I'm just
Right.
leaving the house. I'm not telling you where I'm going. I'm not telling you what I'm doing, who I'm
Yes.
gonna be with." None of that. And you're not
Yeah.
still respecting the relationship, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I like that. I like that. I like that a lot. And I think it's important if you are going to take a walk around the block, just like you said, I'll be back in 20 minutes, babe. I'm leaving the house, but I'm not leaving you. I am not leaving this relationship.
Exactly.
I am just as committed now as I have ever been, but I will be back. And
Mhm.
because, like you said, just walking out, that can create some insecurity in your partner and
Mhm.
wondering if the other one is coming back. Yeah, and your husband said get some air and cool off. Yeah. You just may have to do that sometimes. Like you
Mhm.
said, walk around the block, go for a drive, you
Mhm.
know, just sit out on the porch, sit in the car, listen to some music,
Yes.
because that could be a way to self-soothe. And that's one of the things that the Gottmans talk about when they talk about the four horsemen is when the conflict really starts to escalate in one person rather than just completely shutting down, is to pause the discussion and go and self-soothe. And you may
Yes.
need to listen to some music, you may need to pray, you may need to read some
Mhm.
scripture, you may need to just do something to get your mind off of whatever the conflict was about. And and then come back. Uh, Jackie said, having an argument is good. If my husband, she said, when I get married, walked out and said nothing, the argument would have been worse. Yeah,
Yes.
you're absolutely right. And that matter of fact, that could create another whole argument
Yes.
whenever they do come back. Well, where you been? Why didn't you say you were going? And who were
Yes.
you with? And why did you have to leave the house? You didn't have to leave the house. So yeah, that points
Mhm.
to the importance of maintaining ongoing communication at all times. I'm a huge fan
Mhm.
of say everything, say anything, complete transparency, and
Yes. I
always,
think it
always
also
be
goes back I think it also goes back to Valerie not wanting to damage that partner's sense of trust and their emotional
yes,
safety.
yes, yes. That's very important. Very, very important. Um, so, are there any, or might there be any warning signs that speak to the way a couple might manage conflict that could potentially lead to some deeper problems like some resentment or some
Mhm.
emotional disconnect?
Yeah, there's warning signs. Definitely, if the other partner name calls, if the other partner belittles, or
Mm,
doesn't affirm, maybe they're not name calling, maybe they're not belittling the other partner, but maybe they're also not affirming them and saying, oh, thank you for, making dinner, or thank you for doing whatever you could do to make life easier
mm,
for the other person. That could that could what is it called, be a warning sign that
mm-hmm,
maybe the
mm-hmm,
one person wants affection. We talked about recently, and I think you even talked about in one of your talks about the five love languages. So knowing
mm,
your
mm-hmm,
partner's
mm-hmm.
love language and actually saying, I maybe it's not your love language, but I will do what I have to do so that I'm
Yeah.
expressing love in the way that you need it. So that could be a
Mm-hmm.
warning sign if you're not expressing love in the way that they need it. If they say they want quality time and you never spend time with them, then that
Mm,
could be a warning sign. Because sometimes the partner that's not getting time spent with their partner, they're going to go get that time spent with someone else. And that could definitely be a warning
yeah.
sign for the relationship to end, because sometimes
Mm-hmm,
those
mm-hmm.
friendships that start with Shaquana, and no one knows who Shaquana is, but she's fulfilling that void of the quality time and
Mm,
affirming the partner, then that's going to be a dangerous situation. That's going to be a warning sign that needs to be
yeah.
um looked at. Yeah, and there could be resistance, resentment or emotional distance, definitely, when we're not saying, how can I fulfill the needs of my partner, and how can my partner fulfill
Mm,
the needs for me, and communicating that with each other. If we're not
yes.
communicating that with each other, that could be a warning sign too, because people are not mind readers. They may live in the
Right.
house with you, they may do life with you, but they're not
Mm-hmm,
in your
mm-hmm.
head. And so you need to
Mm,
communicate with them and let them know what it is you need. And
yeah.
on the other hand, they do need to communicate with you too, what their needs, and wants
Mm-hmm.
and desires are.
Yeah. That's good. That's really, really good. And I don't know if you've ever come across this, but there have been times when I will say to one partner or the other, usually both, what is it that you need from your partner
Mhm.
to feel loved, to feel cherished, to feel appreciated, to feel all those things? And sometimes they say, I don't know. They say, I don't know.
Mhm.
And I'll have to give that to them as a homework assignment because,
They have to
how do
figure
you
it out.
expect we got to figure it out. But how can you expect your partner to fulfill a need that you haven't expressed? Because, like you said, we're not mind readers. But I don't know. That kind of surprised me the first time I heard that. What are your thoughts
Mhm.
about that?
I've gone through this book, um, it's called Boundaries in Marriage, and that book is very good to talk about the
Mm,
different laws and the
it's very
different,
good.
boundaries and things that can be crossed.
Yeah.
And it's
Mhm.
really interesting to see how somebody may have a certain, like, we go back to the very first thing we talked about. Somebody may have a certain expectation that they didn't share
Mm,
with their partner, with their spouse. So
yeah.
how do they know? Well, they should already know.
Mhm.
They should
Mhm.
they know we live together. They should understand me, you know, and that's an expectation too, that they know everything. And is
Mhm.
that really fair? Is that really fair? Is that really,
Right.
are you playing the right way? Are we playing the game together? I often say to the couple, you're on the same team. The goal is for you both to win
Mhm.
in this marriage.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, how can
Mhm.
both of you win if one person doesn't share the strategy or the game plan with the other teammate? Everybody
Right.
needs to know the play because
Right.
otherwise, you're throwing the ball and they're not catching it because they didn't know that you were going to even throw the ball. They didn't know the play.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Oh,
Dr.
this
Dini
is
just made a
good,
great
Dr.
point.
Danita.
That
That's a
person needs
great point.
individual sessions to explore themselves and what they want. That is so true. That is so true.
Mhm,
And that's one of the reasons why, even with when I counsel a couple, I still always have at least one, maybe two individual sessions with each partner, because Dr. Danita makes a great point. How much do they know themselves? Each
mm,
one of us, we should be able to know ourselves well
yes,
enough to, at the very least, articulate what it is we want, what it is we need, what our expectations are of our partner. And if we are not able to do that, then that uh, speaks to the need for a deeper exploration.
mhm,
Because if you can't, and I don't like that whole thing. Well, she should know, or he should
mhm,
know.
he should know, she should know.
I can't stand that.
I don't like it either. That's
That
not
is a
right.
huge pet peeve of mine. Listen, I just said Frank and I have been together for 44 years, but I still don't say, well, he should know this or he should know that, because my needs have changed from 44 years ago.
Mhm,
And unless that I share that with him openly, he's not going to know that, because as we grow and we go through different seasons and different times in our life, and the need we have 20 years ago or 15 years ago, sometimes even 5 or 3 years ago, may be different than what we need right now. And our partners
mhm,
won't know unless we tell them. Hey, Miss Ollie. Hey, Nicole. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you. Yeah, so that's very
mhm.
good. Deeper exploration to figure out what it is we want and what it is we need. But this is something I wonder. How can we even choose a partner if we don't know what it is we want and need?
You're asking me
Yes,
how
I'm
can we
just
choose
wondering.
a partner if we don't know
Yeah,
what we want or need?
that thought just
So
came to my
so
mind.
so I wanna say that people are often attracted to certain things about others,
Uh-huh.
right? And that's what draws you in, their appearance.
Yeah.
Do they have money? Do they have a certain status?
Mm,
People will see people before they fall in love or before they, have them as their partner, and there's
mm,
certain things that they're attracted to. There's certain values I often say to couples
yeah.
that you have that brought you to choose this person. And whether the
Yeah.
values are good or bad, that is your values that you had to choosing this
True.
person. And then,
Mm,
then you get into the relationship with the person and you find out, wait a minute, these things that I looked at on the surface, you know,
mm-hmm.
were just the beginning of me being attracted to the person or maybe even lusting after the person. But are these
Yeah.
going to be things that I can live with for the rest of my life? I will say this,
Mm,
some people go into these relationships, these marriages, these partnerships, and they think that they can change the person. No,
Yeah,
this is your
yeah.
gift. This is it's already packaged up very nicely. This is and when you open up the box, what you see is what you get. You can't,
Mm,
do whatever to this person. This is them,
absolutely.
you know?
Yes. And there's some things do change with growth, but there are some
Of course.
fundamental things that just don't change.
Mhm.
And when I have a couple and one of them says, "Well, she needs to stop this or he needs to stop that," and my question to them is, "Okay, well, if that does not change, can you live with that for the rest of your life?"
Exactly.
Because that's a choice we all have to make. Because all of our partners have things about them that we don't like and we
Mhm.
would prefer they didn't do or would do differently or would stop or start. That's just life.
And we have things
Because
that the partner wishes that we didn't do and would stop, right?
absolutely, absolutely. But then we
So
have
so
to
no one's
ask ourselves,
perfect.
can we live with this for the rest of our
Yes.
lives? Yes.
Yeah. I often ask,
Can we live with
couples
it if it
too.
doesn't change?
You said if it doesn't
Hmm.
change, but I also ask, did they come to you like this? Was this something when you first met him or her
Mm.
that already was a part of them?
It
You know,
already,
it's a package. This is your package.
yes.
This is your gift. And this gift, you can't
Hmm.
say, okay, because certain parts of the gift are damaged or don't look the way you thought it was going to look. You can't then just say,
Mm.
I'm going to, throw this out or I'm going to talk
And throw
bad
it
about my
away.
gift. Um,
Right.
you got to work with what you have then.
You do got to work with what you got. You got to work with what you got. I think it was Judge Lynn Toller on divorce court. She would always say, "You get the partner that you chose, not the one that you dreamt about."
Mm, mm, mm.
In that, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but in essence, that's what she meant. We picked
Mhm.
them, flaws and all, and they
Yeah,
chose us with all of our flaws.
exactly.
So let's say a couple is arguing about the same issues
Mhm.
repeatedly over and over. The Gottmans call that having a perpetual problem. So, what advice would you give to a couple who feels like they are caught in this loop and are
Mhm.
having the same conflict, same argument over and over again?
I would actually have them come into the session and we want to try to close this loop. You need assistance to closing up this loop. You need assistance in reference to this
Mm-hmm.
certain
Mm-hmm.
conflict. Let us come together, lay it out on the table what this certain, issue is that keeps coming around in circles and
Mm-hmm.
let us figure out together, what is your concern? What is your concern? Why are you feeling not heard? Sometimes people say, "Well, I don't feel heard in this," or "I don't feel seen in this matter."
Mm.
I feel disregarded, and that's why, this keeps coming up. I don't see any change in this, situation. And so that's why this keeps
Mm-hmm.
coming up. And it goes back to expectations. What is it that you're expecting? What is it that you're, wanting to happen here? And how is it
Mm.
that you can help in this situation? I also want to hold everybody accountable. Everybody has a
Mhm.
responsibility in the matter. It's not just about, oh,
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
person did this, she did that, like you were saying, he did that. I often share with clients communication skills, I statements. I felt this way because
Right.
da 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 da. Not because you, no attacking, you did this, no accusations of the
Mm.
other person. Just take
Mm.
responsibility for you, yourself.
Mhm.
Use I
Mhm.
statements. And in that way, you're putting the onus on yourself. The other person gets to talk. They need to use I statements. Sometimes we have to practice. And sometimes we have to
Yeah.
practice the
Yeah.
active listening. And they'll say, "Oh, I never even thought about that. I don't think I heard that before when we were talking," because you weren't listening.
Mm.
You were
Right.
you were thinking of the next thing you were going to say and you weren't listening to the other person.
Yeah. That's good. So Miss Ollie asked a question: why some husbands don't want to come to marriage counseling? I know how I would respond to that. Dr. Angel, what do you say?
That's a good question. I mean,
Hmm.
a lot of men don't even want to come to individual counseling too. I mean, in our society, it's not
Right.
it's still, I mean, it's on trend right now for people to go to counseling.
Hmm.
I think it started to pick up with the
Hmm.
pandemic, right? Where people were, oh, I'm anxious about things, I'm
Yeah.
depressed, I don't have social interaction like I used to, or
Hmm.
whatever have you. Um, but it's not necessarily still in our society that men can cry or men can be emotional or men can
Right.
seek counseling, you know, that's
Hmm.
still not something that is talked about. Eventually, I hope that it is, but
Hmm.
there is this still stigma around men coming to counseling. Um,
Yeah.
Hopefully, you know, you can do it with your partner. A lot of people say
Hmm.
that when the couples come to counseling, sometimes the men even do individual, you know, that stems from their couple counseling. So, I mean, I do think that it
Yeah.
is, since it's on trend right now, I think that it is something that we're
Yeah.
seeing more of. But men don't like to also hear that, you know, they have a problem in their relationship. If they are going to go to counseling,
Right.
maybe you have to say to them, we don't need to share this with anybody that we're in marriage counseling, you know, because it may to
Right.
them be like, oh, they're going to marriage counseling because they're on the rocks, they have problems, and you know,
Mm.
people don't want other people to know that they're hurting or they have problems, especially if you're in certain status positions, certain roles,
Right.
you know. They
Hmm.
don't want, the men don't want people to know, you know, that
Hmm.
they're in
Hmm.
counseling. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts,
Sometimes they
Valerie?
feel like, I think sometimes they feel like they want to try to fix it themselves.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes men, and I'm going to go back to that safety piece again. They don't feel it's going to be a safe environment for them,
Mm.
because I have heard some of the men and the couples that I counsel say that they expected to be attacked. They expected it to be all about the woman and what she wanted and what she needs,
Mhm.
not when they sit in front of me. I tell them in the very first session, everybody has their turn on a hot seat, the
Yes.
wife included, the female partner included. And I make it a special point to validate the man and to commend him for showing up, because I know it's challenging. Because sometimes with these couples, sometimes the wife or the female partner has been trying for years to get their husband or their partner to come into counseling. And so, being aware of that, I commend them and I thank them for showing up,
Mhm.
because I know that that it could be challenging. And my goal is to create a a safe environment for both partners, so that
Mhm.
neither one feels put upon or attacked, or ignored. Dr. Nita said they're socialized to feel it's not manly to seek help, perceived as weakness, right? I think that's a
Yes.
factor. I think that's a factor as well. Yeah, because they do want to try to, beat a man, so to speak.
Mhm.
And to have people on the outside think that, oh, there's trouble in paradise, something terrible must be going on. But it doesn't have to be anything major,
Mhm.
because when there is chaos or toxicity, counseling can help to make it better. And even a good marriage can be great as a result of coming in for some assistance.
Mhm.
So, when do you think a couple should seek outside help for managing conflict and for other issues? And what might they expect of the process?
If it is really affecting the daily functioning of that couple, you know, if they are
Mm,
emotionally charged going to work and they find themselves not being able to produce at work, or they're not being able to, you know, function in the house together. You know, when we come
mm,
home from work or from whatever we're doing, from school, our house should be a place where it's peace, where it's comfort. And if they're coming
Mhm.
home and they're not feeling like they want to come home, there's
Yeah.
one of the stories in that book that I was saying, The Boundaries in Marriage. The husband talks about
Mhm.
how his wife really wanted him to come home and have dinner with her and the children, but
Mhm.
he had to work late sometimes, and sometimes he said, "I do wanna be here. I really wanna have a hot plate of food with you guys." And, she would always argue with him, always, get on him when he got through the door and he was late, and
Mhm.
so, eventually, she said to him, "Listen, I'm going to make sure we always have a plate for you. You know I love you. I don't wanna argue with you. I don't wanna make you feel bad for coming home late. So I'm gonna always make sure I have a plate for you, always,
Mm.
and I'll put it up for you in the fridge, until you can get home. We'll have our dinner at our regular time, me and the kids." And he eventually got home on time because he didn't like that. He wanted to come home and have
Mm.
his hot plate of food. And he also wanted to come home and sit down with his family and hear about their
Mhm.
day and
Mhm.
share about his. So it's about the fact that there is a process to managing the conflict. You have to, like I
Mm.
said earlier, come from a place of love. But if you
Yeah.
are feeling so charged with these emotions and you feel like, the day to day is a struggle, us managing, then that is the time to seek counseling. We've been having these disagreements. Um,
Mhm.
I had a
Mhm.
couple tell me one time that the reason they sought counseling because they were arguing and yelling in front of their children. And they said, "We don't want our children to see this. We want our children to see us happy and in a healthy relationship. And if we have
Yeah.
a disagreement, having a healthy discussion and not yelling
Mhm.
and saying things that they shouldn't even hear us saying to each other or anybody else,
Mhm.
you know? And
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
going outside of the house and saying, "This is what happened with my mom and dad." Sometimes kids will tell it all outside of the
Mhm.
house.
Yeah, they will.
And so, they just said, "We needed to come because we
Yeah.
needed to get things in control." So when you feel like the
Yeah.
house is not a peaceful place, not a comforting place, not a place you wanna come home to,
Yeah.
because you don't wanna get into those disagreements and arguments with the other person, your partner,
Mhm.
then that's when it's time to come to
Get
counseling,
help.
you know?
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Um, I just want to say Miss Ollie and Miss D were when we were talking previously about why men won't come, they both believe that it is the male's pride that gets in the way of him wanting
Mm,
to come. And I think that kind of ties in with what Dr. Janita said, that the perception of weakness um, ties in to that feeling and that sense of pride. So yeah, that definitely could be a factor. Miss Ali said she tried for years. They'd rather divorce. Oh, and get another wife. Well, I think that speaks to some real deep stuff that's going on. Um, couples that come to me, I ask in the very first session to take the D word out of the equation. A minimum of 6 months. No talk of divorce, no talk of separation. Don't ask anybody to leave the house. Don't none of that for a minimum of 6 months. Because if you want to divorce, you can get divorced anytime. But if you're coming into counseling, to me, that says that there's some willingness,
mhm,
some indication that there's a willingness to work through whatever issues that the couple's having. And when a couple should come into counseling, I think when the emotional connection is interrupted, when the physical, the emotional, physical, sexual, and spiritual connections are interrupted. I
mhm,
think it's time, and the couple cannot work through those issues in a manner where they can come to an agreement and understanding.
mhm,
I think it's time to seek help. Just sometimes just the presence of a third party can help each one listen and hear the other's heart and help
mhm.
them to resolve some of those things.
I do wanna
You were
say
speaking
too
earlier. Okay,
I do wanna
go
say
ahead.
too, something I forgot to say with that
Mhm,
last, thing we were talking about. When there has been some type
mhm.
of infidelity, it's definitely the time to come to counseling. Whether it's been
Oh,
emotional
absolutely.
infidelity, whether it's been, like you said,
Mhm.
physical, sexual infidelity, financial infidelity is
Yeah,
also something. So whether it's been any kinda infidelity, that you can think
yes,
of, "Oh, I was texting this person," or "I was, sexting this person," or "I was,
yeah.
stepping out with somebody," or "I was spending money
Mhm,
that we had set aside for a bill or a major purchase, but I was,
yeah,
gambling," or something. Any kind of
yeah.
infidelity, that is the time to come to counseling before that D word.
Yes, and before the D word, but the affair must stop.
Yes.
Whether it's physical, emotional, financial, or whatever it is, the affair must stop because it's counterproductive to come to counseling when
Mhm,
one partner is still involved with somebody else. Because from my perspective, they're wasting their time, their money, and my time. I ain't got time to be trying to counsel somebody and one partner is, got a side piece. No, for
mhm,
me, I don't want any parts of that.
mhm,
So at the very least, even if they haven't really stopped it, I ask, has it stopped? And if the other partner believes that it has stopped. Because if you come into counseling and you're still embroiled in an affair, I don't know how effective it can really be because your attention, your focus, everything is divided. Miss D said infidelity hurt her marriage bad. Yeah, marriage can be very destructive to a marriage, but I also know theoretically and personally that it doesn't have to be the end. That a marriage can come back from
mhm,
infidelity, but it really depends on the two people involved and if they both want to save the marriage and are willing to do the work that is required because it takes a lot of work to come back from infidelity. It is not an easy thing to do. I can tell you from my own personal experience, and I'm sure the cookie man will tell you as well. It is not easy to come back from infidelity in a marriage, but it's possible, it's doable, and from my perspective, it's worth it.
mhm.
It absolutely is worth it. Um, you mentioned earlier about using I statements in the midst of a conflict when you're starting a conversation. And I think that is so important to use those I statements. And that's another thing that the Gottmans talk about. I love the Gottmans, okay? And I am not a paid anything to talk about the Gottmans. I just love I just love their whole theory and their whole program that they have for
Mhm.
relationships. Because one of the things that Dr. John Gottman says in his book, The Seven Principles of Making Marriage Work, is that 90 to 96% of the time you can predict the outcome of a conversation based on the first 3 minutes.
Wow.
And that's why I think it is so important to start it off that right way with that I statement. I feel hurt. I feel lonely. I feel betrayed. I feel disrespected when blah, blah, blah happened. And what I need is, and
Mhm,
express that need. Starting a conversation like that, to me, it is magical because it lessens the likelihood that your partner will become defensive because you haven't once said you
mhm,
haven't put the onus or the blame on them, you've kept it on yourself, express how you feel, and then indicate a need that you have from them. So I think overall we have indicated that conflict in a relationship is not a bad thing. I think
no.
conflict is healthy. I think it's a good thing. I like when
It's
conflict
healthy
shows
to
up.
have conflict in your
It's
relationships.
healthy.
It's
Yeah,
healthy to be able to share, "I have a different opinion about this. I have a different
yeah.
perspective about this." "Oh, well, what's your
Mhm.
perspective?" Or what are your thoughts?" And you don't have
Yes.
to, like you said, always resolve everything. Everything is not, the end of the world that you agree on everything that you say. that your partner says or
Absolutely.
partner agrees with everything that you say.
Absolutely. Because a conflict presents an opportunity for a deeper conversation. And anytime a couple can engage in meaningful and deep conversations, from my perspective, it has the potential to enhance that emotional connection. And I think that is the life of a relationship, of a marriage. That emotional connection is
Hmm.
life. So, yeah. So, Dr. Angel, any final words you want to share with our viewers?
I like we were just saying, conflict in relationships is healthy. It's healthy to have conflict. And it's
Hmm.
healthy to learn how to manage that conflict. Not everything is going to be resolved,
Yeah,
not everything is going to be solved, and sometimes it has to be compromised. We said a little
yeah,
bit about that earlier. We need to compromise. Sometimes you
yeah,
have to give a little, sometimes the other person has to be able to give a little. Relationships are
absolutely.
reciprocal. They're not always equal. They're reciprocal though, right?
That's
So
good.
it's
Yeah,
a
I
good
love
thing
that.
to know we need to have some give and take. We always need to have some give and
Absolutely.
take.
Yeah. So, for those of you who were not here in the beginning, this is Dr. Angel Wyndham's private practice, New Creation Counseling Services, New Creation Counseling Services in New Jersey. And she and I both also practice
Yes.
at Mending Hearts Behavioral Health and Family Services. So, if you or someone you know could benefit from some counseling, couples counseling, individual counseling, family counseling, children's counseling, although I don't mess with them kids, but Dr. Angel does.
Yes.
Mending Hearts Behavioral Health and Family Services. That is the, what do you call it?
The website.
The address, the
Hmm.
website. And New
And I
Creation
should have gave you
Counseling
my
is
psychologist
Dr.
today.
Angel's private
Yeah.
practice.
If they need to,
Oh,
they can look me
Psychology
up.
Today. You could find Dr. Angel
Hmm.
Wyndham. Absolutely. So I want to thank you all. Oh, Miss D said, forgiveness is important. Yes. Oh, I love that, Dr. Danita. Always ask, is this the hill I'm willing to die on? Woo!
Exactly.
That's big.
Pick your
That's
battles.
big.
Hmm.
Always got to pick your battle. So I appreciate all of you who have been here this evening, whether you're here live or whether you're watching it later. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. I invite you to come back again next week where we're going to have Dr. Ashlyn Jones, and the subject is going to be when to give second chances.
Mm.
Because sometimes we all need a second chance. Some of us need a third and a fourth chance. But we're going to talk about when do you give your partner a second chance. Dr. Angel, thank you so much. And for those of you who are watching,
Thank
she
you.
will be back again. I am so blessed. I am so incredibly blessed to be connected with such amazing, dynamic, insightful, well educated individuals, and to have them here to share their expertise. But they don't just share their expertise, they share from their experience, they share from their heart. And to me, that means everything. And your man is clapping you up. This is Dr. Angel's man right here, Frank Wyndham.
Thank
So
you,
the Cookie
babe.
Man is not the only Frank.
Yes,
So
because
God
your
bless
husband's
you
name is
all.
Frank too. Hmm.
He's Frank also. So come back again next week. We'll have Dr. Ashlyn Jones, and we're going to talk about when to give second chances. Have a great night. Have a great week. Love you
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye bye.